Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grab yourselves a beer, a wine, cup of tea, a glass of vegetarian, vegan-friendly water, because we have a Dyson DC25 to reassemble tonight for our viewing pleasure. You see me take one apart completely, although this is a different model. I won't lie, this isn't the same one as there. The theory is still the same. We have to nail this back together and form a Dyson again. So let's get started. This video is brought to you by Leafletdrop, the marketing tool for small and medium-sized businesses. Build and create a bespoke leaflet distribution for one all-inclusive cost and transform your advertising today. Find out more at the link below. Hello my vacuum cleaner chums, how are you today? So before we get started with the actual assembly, I'll just cover off what you might need to put one of these back together. Now I don't know the reasons why you've taken one fully apart. I'll be honest, you could have broken it, you could have given it a go. Your child could have taken it apart, that's how I started, got told off for that. Or you could be trying to make your heavy investment of a Dyson last another 10 years. Either way, we need three tools. We need, I should have looked at the sizes of this before I started. T15 Torx driver. I have mine in a ratchet. Like so. We will need a flat blade screwdriver, not for screwdrivering but for poking and prodding, and a crosshead screwdriver for one screw. These are the screws. Hopefully you screw carded them all up because they are all different sizes. That is the main machine's screws. All exactly the same T15 head. No little screws to worry about here. These are the base plate, brush roll housing and cyclone screws, with the one crosshead screw which holds the little wheel on in the corner. Also a little tub of grease, just to do some greasing really. Right, tools done. Let's get started. Now I always put my machines back together the way I took them apart. If you know anything about cars, you would have had a Haynes Book of Lies, and the Haynes Book of Lies said reassembly is the reverse of dismantling, and they are true. Although obviously they show you a picture of a brand new car and you're looking at a 25-year-old car which doesn't quite go together. So we shall start with the Cyclone. Let's get all the parts together. Right, you're not here to look at my ugly face, so you can look at my ugly knees, and I shall get all of the Cyclone-y stuff together. We need the pre-motor filter, which has been washed and is perfectly good to use. We need the top lid, or housing. What else do we need? We need the upper Cyclone assembly, like so. Just move a couple of things out of the way. Now we've done the pretty stuff. We need the top handle. Top handle there, look. The lower cone. Lower cone seal. Don't need Jude, aha. These three rubber seals, that's the one for the bottom bin flap. That's the top bin one, and that's the gasket seal. The bin, the actual cone assembly and the shroud. Move stuff out the way. La, 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 la. And then, where are we? Oh, don't say I'm missing a piece already. I'm just thinking out loud. The bleed valve assembly in all of its lovely glory. Diddly diddly do. I think we're actually nearly done. Let me just double check, hang on. I think this is everything that we need. We'll soon find out when we realise we're missing a piece. We have the middle bin release rod and its spring, and the bottom bin flap. Right, let's put all this together. Right, we shall start with the cones. And the cones and the shroud clip together. Now there is a bit to line up at the front. And as long as you line those bits up, don't worry about any damage you did taking it apart. You simply push until it clicks together. And that is the shroud fitted to the cones. I'm trying to show you in the light, but I'm a little bit far down. To move the backlight forward, I think. Well, hopefully not. So once you've done that, we can fit the seal. This is what the bin seal's up against, and again it has a little keyed part. There's a notch on the seal there that corresponds with a notch on the shroud, and you put the seal in so that it closes in on itself. I haven't cleaned that very well. So obviously when the bin fitted, it rubs up against said seal. Right. Next we need to fit the middle rod and its spring. And the spring simply, where are we, pushes into its hole there. And the rod goes in until it does that. Unlike a DC25, you don't have that terribly annoying, horrible, flipping keyed spring that you need to faff around trying to get into the right orientation. So that works well. We'll take the screws out of the card now, simply because we've got to hold stuff together whilst we manhandle bits and pieces. So we'll take the seal. Now these seals do perish if your filter on a DC25 starts to get full of grit. It's because this has split. You can see where all the pressure marks are. It splits on the edges there, obviously where it's being battered with crud really. If you use it for DIY, this will happen, because obviously it can't handle the DIY dust. It's lighter than the Cyclone can cope with. So it goes straight through, trashes this, and makes a meal of it. These are very cheap. Manchester Vax sell them. So always, I would say, if you're not sure, just get one and fit it, and you'll never have to worry about it again. Because then you can just drop the top onto the middle, making sure that the release rod is fitted in place, and also make sure that you haven't caught the foam gasket. I've done that once on one of these, and it blebs air out of everywhere. Then when we've done that, we can put all the screws in. There are 5 screws. Put them all in a turn each, just to straighten it up. Oh, I have just seen a part that I forgot to get out. I am such a wally. So this video is more of a companion, really. Obviously, I've done the strip down, so I'd better do the refurbishment. But also, I do have a full thread on the Manchester Vax forum, which is a lot easier to follow because obviously I can edit any mistakes out. On video, I'm not going to. If this goes wrong, it goes wrong, we fix it. Hopefully we'll learn something along the way, and obviously you can all have fun in the comments and take the mickey as appropriate. So the screws are in. We now need to move on to the top piece. Now the top piece houses the relief valve, excuse me, and the top handle. This is the part that we forgot, along with its little long spring. Pop those down there. What we need to do is, where's my card, get out the 3 screws for the handle. Now these 3 screws, there is 2 very long ones and 1 little short one. The long ones go at the back, and the little short one goes at the front. Now we'll start with this part here. The spring drops to the side into its holder. There you go. You can see it jiggling about. Scooch forward a little bit. I don't want to zoom the camera in because it makes it look horrible. Then that might happen. You'll lose your spring. Don't lose your spring. where's it going? I don't think it doesn't actually matter which side it goes in, so that's the thing. Does it? No, it does matter. There's a spring holder, so it doesn't actually go in the side I've just put it in. It does go in this side. Wonder why there's provision for both then. Maybe Dyson changed the design. Who knows? So you want to start it off, it slides in, and then basically, once you're sort of fairly sure it's in place and in line, oh, we've lost the spring again. Everything lines up and matches up, so as long as you're sure, push down. That's not it either. Oh, where's the spring gone? Uh-oh. There it is. Why won't you go in, you sod? How many of these have I done in the past? You think I know by now? Because I don't normally do them on camera. That's why I knew I'd mess up somewhere. We've only just started on the cyclone. This is boding well, isn't it? Why do you keep doing that, spring? Let's see if we can... just pop it in. Let's lay it down, because basically it all needs to line up. There we go. So that pushes down on the spring. So with the first fun issue out of the way, we have a bouncing handle. This bouncing handle needs fitting to here. Only to line that bit of the rod up with the back of there, look, so it starts to go through, and then manhandle the front down until it clicks. And we have our handle roughly in place. Next we need, put that down gently, to put the relief valve together. That works is you put the spring in there first. Put the spring in there first and don't drop it. Then lower the actual piston, so obviously when it blocks up, this sucks back and opens up the hole. When it's not sucking back, it's out. And seals everything up. And that just sits on there like so, although it only goes one way, so turn it around if it's the wrong way around. There's a notch, and that simply sits on there like that, and then hold it very carefully because otherwise it will all spring out, and put the 2 long screws into the back to hold it all into place. And then the little screw goes into the front. So obviously, don't put the long one in the front or you'll punch straight through the handle. There we go. Marvellous. This now clips onto the front, onto the top even. Just line up one side and push and the plastic will bend like so. Then pop the filter back in, and we have the top part of our cyclone. Next we have the rubber seal for the bottom cone. There is a notch there and a notch on the seal. Simply line these notches up as best you can. It does matter, there we go, so that they both meet. Now, put these to one side for a second and put the bottom seal onto the flap. Now again, there are two, well, it'll only go on one way anyway, because obviously there's only one side that's flat. Push the back of the seal on first, behind the pivot pins, and obviously line up those two notches. And then simply bring it round, tuck it under the clip. This is where your pokey screwdriver comes in handy, just to push that rubber seal where it needs to go. There we go. And obviously it will very suddenly all go together. Now to fit this to the bin, let me come a little bit closer. Put one side of the hinge in. Put the bin under your arm and just push. Squeeze with your arm, which flattens the bin slightly and opens out those two parts, and just push and it'll bend, and there you go, there's your bin. Now the reason that we've done this first is because obviously this sits at an angle to create a seal over that bit, and the amount of times that I put that on back to front is unreal. So now all I do is line the bin up, offer up that in the right orientation, then once you're sure, simply push it in until all four tabs click on. Open the bottom flap again, just pull on the little lever and it opens out. Put the cyclone onto the bin, close the bottom flap up, and our cyclone is assembled. And we can move on to the brush roll. And to do the brush roll we need yet more parts. We need the electronics, so the motor, the PCB and the plug. We need, that's not part of the brush roll, top cover, front bumper, end cap, the brush roll itself, base plate, top plate, belt, and lots of little bits. Bear with me a second. We need the rear corner wheel and its little cover. Do you know what? I think that might. Oh no, it's not it, is it? We need all of the little wheels and axles that go with the wheels. I think I've probably forgotten something. We'll find out in a minute. That is that. Now, there are a few screws. In fact, I think I lied to you. I think you do need a T10 just for the brush roll cog, which is here. So we do need to just quickly grab the next size screwdriver down. And we may as well make a start on that. On the base plate, the brush roll cog fits onto the wheel, like so. Now this is suffering from what many of these do, which is cracking. The edge of the cog housing starts to crack, which isn't actually too bad. It takes a lot for it to crack so badly that it is destroyed. And you can always glue it up. I've glued up a fair few of these. I'm not going to glue this one up because it's not too bad. But yeah, if it's too cracked, glue it. If not, whole heads are quite cheap actually. So you can always just put a whole head on. So there we go. We fitted the brush roll cog. Now that the brush roll cog is fitted, we'll move these out of the way and we'll fit the 3 wheels onto the vacuum itself. Now this is where the grease comes in, because I always like to just to stop it squeaking. You know, when you have squeaky wheels, just a little tiny smear on the axle, pop the wheel on and just spin it up, because you don't want to get too much grease on it, because then it'll go all over the carpet the first time you use it. And then with your pokey screwdriver, just poke the wheels down. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see, and we'll do this corner. So you take your axle. Now I'm going to make sure I get my hand in shot. Just paint a little bit of grease on it. Oh God, it's a bit forward, don't I? Paint a little bit of grease on it. Take the wheel, put the wheel on the axle. If your wheels are jam solid, this is a good way of fixing it. Just a bit of sandpaper on the axle, clean out all the hair and gunk and dirt. Should have them spinning again. There we go. And we'll do the last one, nice and quickly. Clip, clip. Lovely. Right, bring you back a bit. There we go. Right, so we're done with the grease now. Next, what do we need to do next? Well, we need to put the top cover onto there, although we'd still need to move it about just a little bit. In fact, we need to fit some seals first, I think. Where did yeah, the seals go in here. Gosh, I am terrible. There are some seals which need to be fitted. These aren't in the best condition looking at them. They are a little bit grubby, but push them in as best as you can, trying to at least avoid any gaps. If they get a bit mushed up when the top goes on, it's not fully the end of the world, as long as it does still seal. As long as it seals, it'll be okay. So there's the back one, here's the front one. So unless they're really bad, I would advise actually to not bother taking them out. I only took these out basically to show you that it can be done, but it's not mission critical at all. And push it in with your finger. There we go, that will do. Your seals are in. Good enough. Which is all that really needs to be done on this part. So now we can put the top cover back on momentarily, mainly just because we need to now line everything up with itself. Now in the top cover sits all of the electronics. So we need to start with the PCB, because the PCB sits inside that bottom hole. And the way you do it is all the wires need to be that way. So, move around and try not to break it. You simply feed the circuit board into its slot until the massive capacitor goes into there, like so. Then bring the wires around, and for now just sort of rest the motor roughly where it needs to go, because we've got wires to chase around now, and these are always a little bit fun. I won't lie to you, this is the bit where it's going to take a little bit of trial and error, because that bit sits there. Happy days. However, this bit was covered in fluff, so I took it out, which I almost regret just a little bit now. But it needs to sit there, and all the wires go through it. So it's really just a case of following the wire pattern There's a car beeping outside. That's a bit late at 9:15 at night. I'll go and have a look in a minute if it carries on. Yeah, this bit's again quite fiddly. You're going to need your little pokey screwdriver. I'm not going to cut it out, you need to see it. This is real life, people. Even I want to cut this bit out now. Normally I do this on my knee. Oh, think of the public. You would probably have to do this if you needed to replace your PCB. DC25 suffers the same terrible, unreliable brush roll design as the DC24. And I think the new part, the replacement part, does come with all this already together, but I have had it fall apart in the post before. So there is a chance that when you receive your new part, you will have to do a little bit of assembly. Now we got it to that stage now. So now it's at that stage. All the slack wire sits rolled up in the middle bit there. So really it's just a case of tucking in all the wires until they're out of the way, because this bit doesn't see any movement, so you don't have to worry about it being pulled out. You literally just need to have it nicely in place. This is the bit that sees the movement, but only so far until it stops, so you don't need to worry about messing anything up or ripping out wires, because it'll only move so far until it stops. Right, now we can fit the motor. Now this black rubber seal, there's a cable seal there, sits behind the housing, and you'll know it's sitting properly because it will clip home. Then the red wires carry on underneath it, and the black and white motor power wires sort of, oh you can't see anything, push up onto the top, sort of underneath it like so, and it basically acts as a giant plug. There we go. Tuck those wires in just a little bit better. Come on, Sam. Two. Let's just back out a little bit. And there we go. Basically, that is all wired up. So if you have to replace the motor or the PCB, or I recommend doing both, to be honest, because it's going to be one or the other, but normally one takes out the other. So you can get whole heads on eBay actually quite cheaply, so I'll always make that your first port of call. But if you can't, you need to do this. Now we can fit the belt. And you put the belt around the motor first because it's stepped, and then basically just manhandle it onto the pulley. So start with one side, rotate it with your hands, and there we go, we are all belted up. Lovely. Clip the bumper onto the front because it forms part of the screw mountings, and then simply drop the housing cover onto the top, and everything will line up. If it doesn't just drop in, you've done something wrong. It's basically where that goes. If it doesn't just clip straight on, your wiring is not correct. So you need to sort it out. We'll take the screws out of the card. Put them in any old place apart from in this top corner. So all the screws fit all the holes any way you like. I normally start with the corners just to hold everything together. Gonna go a bit of a cold. So do the corners first just to hold and stop everything moving about in an annoying way. There we go, there's another one here. There we go, another one here. And then the 4 down the front. At least it's not like a 25 where they're all a 24 where they're all little screws and you've got that annoying rubber strip down the middle of the base plate that I don't always bother replacing because it's too much hard work. These are all nice proper size screws. There we go. Second to last. And the last one. There we go. Now for the little wheel that sits in the back corner. Again, just paint the smallest drop of lubricant. Doesn't need to be much. All you're doing is to stop it squeaking or sounding dry. And then you sit the wheel in first and then simply drop the housing on. Like so. Then get the one and only crosshead screw in the entire machine and fit it. There we go. In theory, this should run quite smoothly. Now we can fit the brush roll itself. This one's perfectly fine. The brushes are long. It's seen a bit of wear, but it's absolutely fine, I'll be honest. Then you should all know how to put the end cap on because obviously you all clean your brush rolls out quite regularly. Check it spins. We don't know if it works yet, we won't until we test the machine, but that is done. You couldn't see through that when I started on this particular machine. You often can't. You often can't. Right. Next is the motor, ball and yoke. And for the motor housing we need obviously a motor. These are Panasonic motors. Very common nowadays. I think Dyson just use Panasonic apart from in the digital motors. The ball housing itself we need this wiring. This is what brings the wires around the ball. The yoke pivot with, oh, which spring is it? I think it's this spring. Let me just confirm a spring. Hang on, it's this one. Good thing about Dyson springs is that you know they're the right size because they'll fit, with a few exceptions, they fit onto the little stubs that hold them. So we need the pivot and the pivot bush. There's a little bush there that it runs on. The motor housing seal itself, the big cog, the little cog, the back motor mount, the top fan case mount, the yoke wiring, so cover, tray, guide, you can call it a few things really. Again, I think that's it for now. Certainly, oh no it's not, wait, we need the yoke loom wires itself. These are very common to break, especially the red wire due to the way it is routed. If your brush roll stutters on and off, especially when you move the machine, you need a yoke loom, but that's not for this video, although there is another how-to guide for one of those on the Manchester Facts website. Very finally, I've just noticed I'm missing possibly the most important part of the entire motor housing, the inner motor housing, which is where we need to start first. It won't stand out, this is quite annoying this part, so you'll have to get a little bit used to that. But we put the rear bearing, the rear motor housing even, onto the motor. It clips in, only goes one way, so don't be too worried about that. And again, the motor itself only goes in one way. And you need to line up those two holes with the two prongs on the back of the housing. Now the reason I say it only goes in one way is because obviously the tabs line up a certain way. And the way that I do it is, if you look in from this side, I can't really show you on camera, but you can clearly see when the tabs go in, and you can doubly see because that part of the mount goes right in. If that's not poking properly far out, it's not done. That is poking properly far out, so we are okay. Now the next part involves the wires. Now if the wires sort of come out from the side, but they need to come out from here. So if I just put that in my knees to hold it, we can put the fan case seal into the fan case plate. Now again, it's got a keyed section. That little kink there lines up with a kink on the housing itself, so there's no thought required there. That's fairly simple. Simply push that in and then push the inner part around where it needs to go, which I think I've done a bit too much there. Hang on. There we go. It just pushes on so it sits like that. However, we're going to need to take some of it off again, because the way this works, God, you're not really seeing anything, are you? Hang on. Oh. There we go. The way this works, so you have to hold it in your knee because it keeps it roughly upright. These wires have to pass through that hole there. So put a little bit of spit on the rubber, which you should be fine to do because obviously you just scrubbed it clean. Put the wires through and pull the rubber grommet on, but not through like I have just done. Wally, hang on. Now I'm going to push it through. It obviously steps, so only part of it at a time sits. Right, there we go. Let's put it through a little bit more carefully. There we go. Literally just until the top shoulder pokes through. Then you need to push the wires into the cable chase. Let me push them in and I shall show you what I mean. Hang on. It's also going to be where it all starts to pull apart now, because obviously I'm going to be manhandling it more than I usually would. If you keep it steady, you'll be alright. But basically the wires need to run through there exactly like so. And then I'm going to have to keep you at this angle because I can't move you now. Tuck the wires around under the fan case. Match up the kink in the top with the same kink that's in the bottom. Make sure that the motor housing seal is still in place. And the whole thing will simply drop on to the top. And this rubber seal should not be deformed. If it starts to fold in on itself, you've gone wrong. So, there you go. And again, we have 4 lovely, lovely screws to go in. And you want to do these fairly quickly before the whole thing falls apart. And you've got to do all that again. That's great fun, that is. There we go, we'll get these 2 in and then I can relax a little bit. There we go. 3. And 4. If you need a new motor for your 25, which is quite rare actually, I think I've only ever had one with a blown motor, the whole kit comes like this. You can buy the naked motor I think, but the kits are the same price. So you shouldn't need to do that. If you suck something into the fan for the motor, then you'll have done this. If you need to wash the fan for the motor due to excessive plaster dust, you'll need to do that. But if you're just buying a motor from anywhere, it will come like that, ready to drop straight into the ball, which is what we're going to do now. Drop the motor into the ball, we need the ball shell. I used the one without the filter cut out. We then need the big bearing. Now this big bearing does come apart, so this one doesn't need it. Excuse me, if you've got a really rattly sounding ball, just rub grease into all of those, into the ball race, and it just literally clips together like so, and it should quieten it right down for you. That sits on there like so. This side sits there like so, but we need to manoeuvre it about a little bit, because when you drop this into the shell, the sort of sticky outy bit mates in with the ball like so. So that basically sits in a widened track. There, give it a spin, because then you know it's all right. Fit the filter now, so we have the post motor filter there. I normally pop the cover onto the filter now because it's just a bit easier. So put the post motor filter cover on. Pop the other half of the ball together. Get your 4 screws and pop them in. That's the wrong screwdriver. There we go. Oh, marvellous. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and finally 4. Where are you, number 4? There you are. Lovely. 1 spinning ball. If you hold it right, look, you can spin it whilst holding the motor still. Because obviously the ball spins around the motor. The motor doesn't spin itself. The ball spins around the motor, like so. It's a proper ball as well, not these silly new ones where each side of the wheel is a ball, which I don't like because they veer off suddenly if you catch them incorrectly. So we have our proper ball all sorted. So we can pop the rubber seal that seals the fan or the motor to the chassis pretty much. We can put the wiring tray roughly into place, and it basically mates up with everything and lines up. Don't clip any wires in yet though. The white wire's going to go there and the black wire's going to go there, but don't do that yet because you'll have a horrible time. What we need to do now is pop that to one side and fit all of this together. This is the yoke. This is obviously, as you know, where the suction goes and the bit that actually holds the ball. This is the lock pivot bar. And the lock pivot bar, you have to have your spring fitted, obviously. Fairly simply, actually. That bit has to line up first, roughly. And then, with your pokey screwdriver, just bend that bit over that bit, which will be very loose because, what have I done with it? We have the pivot part itself which screws in. Yes, it does. So I'll screw that in. And basically just make sure that when you push it, it's sitting nice and level, like so. Right, now we need to do the wiring for the yoke, and I always get this a little bit wrong, so I found a picture on the internet of one. Because usually I follow my own how-to guides, but I'm not tonight. We're doing this raw. So the way that you look at internet pictures is you try and hold the part the same way. By holding the part the same way, I know that the white wire goes on the inside, it just pushes, and then just need to push the little plastic tab down that I prized out, take the thing out in the first place, and the red one goes on the outside. Again, if you buy the repair kit, which is incredibly cheap for these because it's such a common issue, even the genuine Dyson one is a £5. It comes already on this. You literally just bolt this onto the machine, so excuse me, you don't have to worry about doing this. Although again, those wires can fall out of that part there, because yes, you need to run the wires into their little cable holes. Everything on a Dyson has to go back as it was, otherwise it will rub and catch and not work properly. That is the key to Dysons. So many times I see where people have tried and just haven't quite got it spot on, so it rubs. Now we need to fit this into there. Put your finger over the end and just pop the wires through this gap. Come on, Mr. White. Follow Mr. Red. Come on, you sod. Like so. No, you go through there. Hang on. Once it's through there, the back of this part needs to go inside and behind there. And now this is very fiddly because you need to pull the yoke lock down and basically push it back. The prongs have to poke out and basically it all has to sit really flush like so. Then we can put the 3 screws back in where they came from. This also holds down the pivot bar, stops it from springing up so much. Little springy sod. So 1, 2, and 3. Lovely, he says, not being able to get it in. There we go, the yoke with its pivot and wiring loom is done. Now I've realised that I've lied to you and that part doesn't go on first. This part goes on first. And again, with a little bit of manhandling, because you've got to make sure that the motor wires are inside the ring. Using the natural bend of the soft Dyson plastics, clip that side on, and this side does just follow, really. I mean, that's loose. That's because that's where this bit comes in. This bit is what packs everything out. Obviously some more bits pack it out as well, but mainly what packs it all out. How it works, and it all has to be at a certain orientation, which is there, because the 2 wires poke in like that. That is all we can do for now on that. Whee! Because it is time, and I'm not going to pull the parts out now, because we need to use them all for the main show. And the first thing to do is to put the spinal cable back in place. Now this isn't as tricky as it sounds, mainly because you can follow the marks from where it was before. So we need to go from there all the way down there, and then behind, out of there and up there. So to start with, you need to feed the connectors through the hole one by one, because they'll bind up if you try and force them through. But once you pull the first one through, the rest do sort of follow. And use a screwdriver just on the actual crimps themselves, not the wires. And eventually, he says, having messed it right up, they will start to go, but I messed that up. This is the pain in the bum one. Is you need to sort of have the wire pushed in nicely so it's as thin as possible and goes through the hole. Let's try that again. Or you could even just do it the other way around, because these ends haven't got... Let's do it this way around. These motor ends haven't got rubber bungs on them. Doesn't really matter which way around you do it, as long as A, the cable goes in the right way. And that's about it really, as long as it goes in. Doesn't really matter. There we go, look. Gets a much better purchase on that. He says, not getting a very good purchase on that. So there we go. The brown wire that was doing it, and there we go. So we have the spinal cable through the middle of the machine. Next, line up the end of the cable with the stop thing, you know, where it naturally ends, and push that end in first, and that lines up the whole machine ready for when you're further up by the switch bank. Because that's when it's a pain, because we do that bit last. And then without stabbing yourself in the leg or cutting the cable, a few dinks are fine in the rubber, but if you slice through the cable, you've got to get a new spinal cable. And that will be a pain in the bum. Just push the wiring in to its chase. So it basically looks like that. And then on this end, just to keep it out of the way and to stop you from going utterly nuts, just push the spinal wire behind the locating tabs on the back of the chassis. A couple might need a bit of help. Okay, proper help. Ending with putting the little wires just sort of up there. We'll deal with those later. But we now have the cable done. Now that the cable's done, we need to route the wires around here. And the way that we do that is, just zoom in a bit so you can actually see, the red wire goes up. I'm pretty sure actually, hang on, let me just sense check. Yes, red wire goes up, brown wire goes up. Again, you can sort of follow the dimples in the cable from where it sat there before. So it's not utter guesswork, but the blue cable goes down. And then basically comes straight back on the white cable. Push in nicely. Until it looks like that. So you have the brown, red and white at the top, and the white and blue on the other. Marvellous. Right, so that's that done. We can now look at the changeover valve. Now the changeover valve, this is where when you put the wand down, it pushes this bit down, which in turn moves this lever, which moves a wheel, which moves the side hose, which is here, using this flap. We're going to put all that together now, and we'll start with the side hose. Now there is a rubber seal with two locating dimples. There we go, just pop that on like so until those two bits are in line. Push the hose onto there. And we need to put it into here. Now this part here is what does the changeover and needs to locate in here. The best way to describe it is just to push the two locating tabs together whilst twisting and manhandling. Line up the hose here first, otherwise everything will bind up like it just has. And in fact you can push it on because there's enough give in the hose. If you push it on like so, then this side, the other side is already behind the plastic, just push it back manhandle the heck out of it, and it will just go eventually. Come on. There we go. You might need to sort of just twist the end a little bit to straighten it out. But basically there is our changing hose. So when the wheel rotates, it moves this part to that part. So we have floor, tools, floor, tools, floor, tools. This part gets blocked up. If you have a blockage, check that's pipe. It's a bit more tricky than it sounds, because obviously you need to get into there or under there. You can pop the pipe off and get it back on with the machine together though, so don't worry too much. You can also take this flap off, but I do not recommend it because that spring is a sod to get back in, an absolute pain in the bum. So I don't recommend it, don't do it, leave it well alone. This cog can also fall off, the screw loosens. This is the cog that sort of helps slam against the ball, so it sort of helps kick the whole mechanism back, and it can fall off and get lost. I've had a few machines in for repair like that. The pivoting arm needs to go through the hole at the back, and then basically the whole thing then lines up and it's ready to screw together. So again, put the first screw in just to hold everything in place. It all lines up well enough to not have to worry about, like we did with the Cyclone, when we put one screw in, put all the screws in loose. This bit doesn't matter because it clips together very finely. There's a second screw. We'll put there's another one at the back here. Another one at the back there. Then there's two underneath, one there and one there. You can't, I've got my camera down too flipping low. Now you can't see anything. I can't see anything. What's going on? One there, and the other one goes there, like so. I'll do them up. He says not being able to do them up. What's going on? It hasn't lined up properly. Oh, I've lied. Ooh. Back the screws off. There we go. There's a join there, which I think is the key. So we'll put these in first. Oh yeah, there we go. That's gone in with my fingers now. And that'll pull the other one together nicely as well. Marvelloso. Lovely job. There we go. So that's those two. This one, and this one. There we go. That now looks like a DC25 should. You now need the little plastic washer that goes in the middle of the changeover wheel. The changeover wheel has to go over the little peg from the flap, and also this, because it's this that moves everything around. Make sure that the flap part of the valve goes through the side of the wheel. Put the centering bush on, then quickly do up the screw, then test it, because otherwise it's all just going to fall apart. So there we go. Now if we open the flap, if I can get fingers in the right place. Ooh, what have we done? Hang on. I don't think this was in the right place to begin with. That's fine, because it defaults to the wand, ready for obviously wand use. So we'll default it back to the wand. Uh-oh. There we go. Default it back to the wand. Just do this back up again. And in theory, there we go. When you open the flap, the wheel moves as does that side hose. When you effectively, so when you put the wand in, it pushes down and that moves that hose to the floor position. When you take the wand out, it springs back up, pops the hose back. Everyone is a partial winner. Oh. Now we can fit the ball, which is great fun. Ish. First put that side in. Now I'm going to try and do this upside down, so apologies if it doesn't quite go to plan. Oh, I've done this wrong. My wires are wrong. Wires are wrong. See, that's a good thing about doing this. You can instantly tell when something's wrong because of just how it looks. Brown goes up, red goes down. It's the blue and white that go up, because obviously live and neutral. And then neutral down, which is what works the brake for the brush roll bar. Then the white goes down to the bottom. Again, take pictures. I do all my refurb threads. They started with me taking them so I knew how to put stuff back together. They just evolved into what they are now, really. So you get nice refurb threads, I can put the flipping machine back together. Right, let's try that again. So, sort of line the ball up as best as you can. Oh, hang on, the wiring has fallen off. Oh, really? There we go. Line up, fit the ball. Put this stupid white cover back on. And bring that as close as you can. And basically put the screw in. There's the one screw that holds it on this side. Put it in as soon as you can, because it pulls everything together and stops you going crazy. Again, you need to jiggle stuff about a bit because there's still a lot of slop at the minute. There we go. Pop that home. And then do the other side. The other side sits behind this plastic bush. Obviously, as you can see in a minute, it is not centred. You need to centre it manually. Put the bush in. That suddenly straightened it all up. Then pat the screw in. Like so. And finally you can manoeuvre it about a bit. And we can look at the wiring, can't we? Now, the two white wires clip together. And push. This bit's a bit tricky. It's as tricky to get them back in as it is to get them out. Into there. The red wire goes to the micro switch. So ferret it down into its little chase part like so, and we'll leave those hanging up there for a second. The white for the motor goes to the white and blue, and again pushes in any which way possible, the annoying sodding thing. There we go. And then it's the back part of the crimps that's the most tricky bit, trying to get the end of them into where they need to go. That's almost as tricky as getting the crimp itself in, because they need to go at an angle, they need to flatten them out so they sit beneath a clip. It's really fiddly, but once you get it, it's okay. These have been apart before, not by me, by somebody else, so they're a little bit battered. But the good thing is, once it's clipped in, they don't move, so just it's not the end of the world. But basically, there's your wiring. And again, rotate the ball, the wire does not move. While we're at this angle, we may as well take the micro switch actuator, its little spring, the housing, and the micro switch itself. This is what turns the brush roll. All my legs have gone to sleep. On and off. In fact, no, I lie again. We don't need to do that first. We need to do the wheels and the red pedal. Yes, yush. Because there's a spring that goes over there first. Let's do this first. So, the wheels will go on that way round, because obviously that bit is underneath. Now, on this side, the grey pedal, all we've got, there we go. The grey pedal goes on top and clips into that side and over the bush on this side. These screws have a plastic washer, and again it's one of those jobs where you put that screw in before you even let go, because otherwise that happens. Let me just move it about so you can see me actually put the screw in. And I'm going to have to stop and have a drink, I think, and a bit of a break, because I have filmed this in real time so far, literally. Apart from a few changes of camera angle, this has been about an hour. And it's not been too bad. So there we go. Try and get the grey pedal in first. Then the red pedal. Now the red pedal, again, goes on very similar, but not quite. But you can, it's a bit of a fiddle, but you can get the red pedal on as is. What will be stopping you is trying to get that over that. So what you do is you take a Brave pill, and using a pry bar or screwdriver, as I should call it, any way possible, we need to get this over here. Maybe this will work better. Yes, that seems to be working better. Put that side in first, then manhandle that bit in, and do up its screw on this side, which also has a plastic washer. There we go. Oh, I think we're missing a spring. Hang on, but I think you can get that spring in afterwards. This spring here is what makes the red pedal bounce. Oh, it only sits here, that's not too bad. We'll have this side out again, because I think we can get it in without actually worrying too much about the other side. Let me just... There we go. The spring only goes in one way, because it's all keyed, so the whole thing goes in like so. And yeah, this is where it's going to be a little bit interesting, because it needs to tension itself against the very parts we are pushing against. No, it's done it. Right, I think I'm going to take a break. Unless... Oh, hang on. Hello. It's done something. Yeah, well, I think that might have actually just fitted itself. Hang on, let's just do the screw up very quickly again. I always say do the screw up. Do the screw up! Don't not do the screw up. Don't be a screw up. The simple way to check is to stand the machine as upright as you can. Okay, so I am watered, batteries charged up a bit on the camera, and I have the head quickly apart because we've missed a spring. There should be a spring that sits in that part there. I thought the belt went on just a little bit too easily, so we'll have the belt off and hopefully we can just pop the motor out, put the spring in and just put the motor back in. There we go. Yes, that provides a little bit of tension to the motor just to take any kick out of the brush roll. Whoops. Always why you check your stuff, because obviously there should be no parts left over. So I'll lob this back together and we'll get back to that pesky red pedal spring. There we go. Let's never speak of that again. Right, this pesky little spring. The problem is that the spring needs to sit under the bit that it sat on, which we may be able to do without taking the whole thing apart, but then again, maybe not. Let's just see. I can't manhandle that down. That's mildly annoying, so we shall take the red pedal off again. Didn't say this would be easy. I'm not lying to you, it can be as fiddly as anything. The 25 isn't too bad. 24, nightmare. DC40, nightmare. These aren't so bad. Oh. Right, that's now sat under. Aha. Hang on, let me just pop this back in before it all pings out again and I lose where I was. And I'll try and show you where it now sits. And we'll check it works. Let's check it works first before I go and get too excited. So that is upright. Aha! Much better. There. The spring sits there now and basically provides the red pedal with the springiness it needs to click up into there. Obviously when it's down, it does that. But when it's up, it then springs up and that's how it locks. That's its locking mechanism. This annoying spring seems to have just fallen out. So we'll zoom you in and we'll put that back because this is quite simple. You simply push it onto here and then pop it on. And it basically goes there, and that's what provides the grey pedal with its kickback. So when you recline the machine and then when you stand it up, the pedal pings around. We can now go back to what we were doing before, which is the brush roll micro switch, which sits on top of all of this. These two red wires need to go through the little hole, like so. There we go, 1, 2. It sits on there, and then goes down to there, and then we won't worry too much about how it looks yet. This is the brush roll micro switch. Only goes on one way, so that the two contacts clear where they should clear. This little spring sits in the cam like that. I can't really make it focus either. And then quite fiddly pushes in there with the spring where it goes. Now in theory, if I manipulate the pedal, you will see that it pushes the cam down onto the switch. And that is what makes the micro switch work. Pop the two red wires, doesn't matter which way they go because you're just making a circuit, into there, push the red wire back into its little house where it goes. And then, oh, we've lost the micro switch, hang on, there we go. We'll put the cover on, which just sits over everything like that, with its 3 screws that happily sit here. Screw 1, screw 2, and we'll just fit screw 3 so I don't drop it. There, like that. Marvellous. Now if we flip over, we have a hole to fill. We have a hole to fill with this hose, which is borderline. This has been turned over, so my little bodge will work slightly. This is what gets caught when people are careful. And obviously if it rips through, you lose suction to the floor head. Again, they are pennies to buy. However, as long as it hasn't gone through too much, that hole will be fine because it's sealed up with the chassis. But if it's just scuffed, you can turn it around. There's a little bodge that I often do, somebody else has already done it. Push one side on, and then concertina the hose in, use its flexibility, and eventually it will just pop on. Just got a little kink at the back, so we'll use again the handy proddy screwdriver. There we go. That is our side hose. Now, if we fit the floor head, we can check everything pivots properly, everything moves. Obviously not going to... There we go. Yeah, lovely. Right. We can move on up a bit. And we can move on up a bit to the top. So we can get the cable and the switch bank fitted. So I'll just undo my cable because I've had it tied up so it's not in the way. We'll put the excess over there. And first things first, we need to fit the mains cable. So the cable grommet, I was going to say grommet then, but I didn't, I said guide. Goes in first and push the cable. Again, if it's a cable that you've already had, this will be very easy because it's already got its shape. If it's a new cable, you've got to sort of measure it. And it's not quite as fun. Then we need the neutral block. Now the two blue wires are the easiest. They just clip together, go inside this little plastic cover, which clips down right at the very bottom with the whole assembly out of the way. Fairly easy. The more tricky part is the 3 switches. The on-off switch, the brush roll on-off switch and the brush roll reset switch. And I should be able to do this by memory, hopefully. So the brown wire for the mains cable and the brown wire with the red lead coming off of it is the mains on-off switch. Then the one remaining red link wire goes to the brush roll on-off switch, and then the two little wires with the little crimps go to the brush roll reset switch. Now I'm just double checking which way round it sits, because this only goes in one way and it's that way, so always check first, wire them up. In fact, I'm just going to do this the other way round and put the bottom wire there, that wire there. It sits in like so. We have our three switches. Now we can get the switch housing, bring it back a little bit, and the switch covers themselves very simply. The red one has a spring, the actual mains on-off switch has a spring. This spring sits on there first. Then slide the mains on-off switch into position. The brush roll on-off switch has the plastic cam and its spring fitted, and in fact I think it actually goes on first. Yes, it does. And it ends up with that basically. With that, you need to, and again this is a little bit tricky but you'll get there, lift up the switches just a tad, just enough to clear the switches inside. He says, having got something terribly caught. What's terribly caught? Oh, right, that hasn't just gone straight on, so something is wrong somewhere. And I do have a feeling that we have actually got the brush roll reset switch the wrong way round, Gromit. So we'll just try it the other way round, really. And it'll only go in one of two ways. So we're going to lift these up as far as they'll go. Lower. That's better, look, that's clipped straight on. There we go. Now, very carefully flip it over. Put the three switch housing screws and put them in, really. Don't need a close-up shot for that, do we? 1, 2, 3. Ooh, that's just dropped into place very handily indeed. Then just do a quick test of your switches, just to check they move really. You can't turn it on and off yet. We have two rubbers to fit. First is the cyclone output seal, I suppose. No, input seal. This is where the dirt comes into the cyclone. This seal here is where the suction comes in. So in theory, nothing should pass through this pipe apart from clean air, which in practice never happens. But hey ho. I took out these, which are the clips to the tool housing, which fit in at an angle. They are a bit fiddly, as everything is with a Dyson, but you go in from the side, hold your finger on the top and clip it in. Go in from the side, hold your finger on the top and clip it in. We can then put, where are we? Hang on, there we go, perfect, look at that. We can then fit the upholstery tool. Hello. We can fit the brush to the crevice tool and fit the crevice tool. We are doing well now, aren't we? We can fit the nicely washed up hose there and move on very quickly to the wand. Now I've taken the cap off of the wand, so that simply clips on there, slides into the back, pushes on, and we have the last screw from the screw cards. We are pretty much done now, so if you're still watching this, fair play to you. You must really want to know how to fit the wand to a Dyson. Or you love me, someone's got to love me. And then the final part is this, which is the catch for the top of the wand, which gets full of fluff and is really worth getting clean. So you pop it off, you give it a wash, and then you line up the spring, line up the catch with your, oh hang on, we dropped the spring, look. That needs to be, it's quite difficult to hold like this, all the weight's at the wrong end. So line up, that's where the spring goes on the other side, so roughly match it up, put one side in, and then just ever so gently push, check it does that, plug the hose into the wand, clip the wand to the machine, push down, and then I just need to raise you up a little bit to say flick that part down. You can go back down now, and then do up the cable. Ooh. Wind the cable up, wind the cable up, clip the cable on, then take the bin, fit the bin, whew, and we are done. One back to pretty much brand new, working, not cosmetic. It's still got scrapes and scratches and battle scars, but you could literally say that this is as clean as the day it left Dyson. Obviously I've used all my refurbs because I'm a little bit sad, but if you bought a second-hand Dyson, if you want to sell one, good way to do it. You can look the person who's buying it in the face and say that it is spotless. And if Watchdog are doing their yearly thing on rogue Dyson engineers and pick you as an unlucky volunteer to do an unknown sting operation on, they'll take this apart and know that you are indeed telling the truth. Or it's a way to get them 10 years out of your vacuum cleaner, because if you put a new brush roll on it, they're quite cheap, new brush roll, brand new filters, if you didn't want to wash the old ones up, it would work as new. But we need to see whether this one works really, because for all we know, we've missed something. We haven't put a wire back in properly, we put a wire in the wrong place. We've got to test it. So let's do that quickly now. Does it work? Like brand new. It looks like, well, it looked like new. It's now, I vacuumed today. If you're watching this in the future, this is April 18, so 12 vacuums in 12 months is the Dirt Devil, and on that little pass it picked up all of that, which isn't too horrific. You can go back on the floor. I'm not going to have to clean all that out, and that has picked up a fair bit. Oh, blimey. So I'll give that all a wipe down before I go back to it later. That's fine. Not too fussed about that, but I hope you have enjoyed watching this video that's probably gone on for far too long. This is the next night I've done this bit, because it was midnight when I finished putting it together, and that was an 11 gig dump off the memory card to do that bit. So it's going to be a long one. if you've watched it all the way through until now, if I had a hat, I would take it off for you. I do hope you have learned something. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's good for you. Please comment if you have any issues or questions. I'll try and help many others of my followers are Dyson aficionados. If you're not a collector and you stumbled across this because your Dyson exploded, we can help, or go to the Manchester Vax forum. Dyson will not touch these anymore. If they, well, no, they'll touch it for 100 quid-ish. Call out fee, because these aren't under guarantee anymore. I don't think anywhere in the UK, they're just too old, so you're on your own in that wilderness out there. Very best of luck, but this one is now ready for another couple of years of life, possibly a bit more depending on how its owners react to it. But for now, for us, it's a thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you soon with probably not such a long video. Bye for now.